welcome to It's My Life, the program that brings you face to face with the top politicians of the country. This week we are in the southern state of Tamil Nadu in the beautiful temple town of Mayiladuthurai. Our guest is somebody who's been a former diplomat, politician, a writer, a columnist, somebody who's known for his political wit and satire. Let's meet Shankar Aiyar this time. Shankar Aiyar was born on April 10, 1941 in Lahore at Lakshmi Mansions. A product of Welham Boys School and the Doon School, he obtained BA in Economics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Shankar Aiyar lost his father at age 12 in an air crash, after which his mother had to negotiate with Doon to allow him to continue his studies with reduced fees, and in return she taught at the school. Having served for 26 years in the Indian Foreign Services, the last of which were on deputation to the Prime Minister's office under Rajiv Gandhi, Aiyar resigned from the service in 1989 to take up a career in politics and media, entering Parliament as a Congress MP from the constituency of Mayiladuthurai in 1991. Currently a Member of Parliament from Rajya Sabha, Aiyar was part of the first cabinet of Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2004. He has served as a Union Minister for Panchayati Raj until he lost his seat in the 2009 election. He even served as a Union Cabinet Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, and was also the first Minister for the Development of the Northeast region. Our first stop in Thanjavur district. These are families which helped Shankar Aiyar during his stint as Lok Sabha MP. Now he's back again, seeking their support. Shankar does not believe in holding Janta Darbars and prefers interacting with the people one-on-one.
Papa! Balle, 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 balle. Huh? You find it? Chennai MGR. Huh?
And these are general people, no relation with the Congress workers or anything?
I don't know. There are not very many Congress workers in Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
So, it's like, I used to say that when I was Minister of Panchayat Raj, I was running the country's biggest NGO. And here, I may be in the Congress party, but there's no Congress party.
Right.
So we are all really like independent. This is a very, very strong ADMK leader of this area. And he was immensely helpful to me in the 1999 election when we won. Now, unfortunately, we are on opposite sides.
Shankar Aiyar might have lost the last general elections, but it's very clear that he's putting out all the stops to energize the cadres and gain support from the people here in Mayiladuthurai. Mr. Aiyar, it's very clear with the way you're moving around and meeting the people. You're preparing a very strong ground for yourself for 2014 elections.
For 22 years, I have been moving from village to village, holding meetings exactly like this. Because from Rajiv Gandhi, I learnt one very important thing, that people like me, whose educational background is Doon School at St. Stephen's in Cambridge, We may have high educational attainments, but we know nothing of what the people want. So instead of sitting in Delhi and deciding how to spend the money that I have under the MP Lads funds, I go from village to village. I meet with the village presidents, I meet with them. I ask them what do they want. And they come up with sometimes what appears at first sight to be bizarre requests. It's the way in which I run my political life here. But yes, of course, I'm extremely serious about the 2014
You're hoping to
election.
get a ticket for 2014 elections?
May I be granted one? I think there are tremendous difficulties. One is that if we have an alliance, we have to first see whether our senior alliance partner will allow the Congress to get a constituency that it lost in 2009. The second is if the Congress gets it, whether I will be given the ticket or somebody else will be given.
But so with the regional parties holding the flag and they being the main players in the state, what kind of chances does Congress really hold?
Very little. But if there is one hope in hell, it's me.
Extending a helping hand to the families of the bereaved is an important trait of Aiyar's personality, and therefore condolence meetings become an important event during his constituency trips.
வணக்கம்ப்பா வணக்கம் வாழ்த்துக்கள் அனைவருக்கும் வாழ்த்துக்கள் வணக்கம்ப்பா
மக்களின் தொண்டர் மணிசங்கர் ஐயர் மக்களின் தொண்டர் மணிசங்கர் ஐயர் நிரந்தர பாராளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் மணிசங்கர் ஐயர்
வணக்கம்
Now we enter a family which is celebrating the most popular custom of South India called the Minarke practice, which celebrates the maturity of the girls, and money has come to bless the girl.
I love the food here. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to eat it because the doctor has said that I have to really cut down on rice. And chapatis are now known here, but barely. And they usually mix it up with what we in the north call a parotha. So you have to say chukka chapati.
Tradition in Tamil Nadu where girls actually mature and families celebrating. None of the people have taken up this issue as to regarding the fact that the girls might feel embarrassed or something. No.
It's a signal that the next generation is coming. It's a celebration of life. And it does seem to me after I've seen the faces of these children, it's their first public exposure.
Time for a short break now. Don't go away. We'll come back with lots more on Shankar Aiyar. Back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching It's My Life with Shankar Aiyar.
Conscious of his fitness, Mani is not into gymming or hard workouts, but walk around the temple is more than welcome. And while he walks, Tamil film industry entertains him with a shoot as well.
Right now we are at the Airavatesvara Temple at Tanjore district where we're going to learn the Chola history with Mr. Aiyar.
It was not built overnight. It took a few centuries to
And built
reach.
during the Chola period.
During the Chola period, yes.
Shankar Aiyar now becomes a guide for its My Life team and explains the magnificent architecture of the Chola period.
Big battle in those days was between the Shaivites and the Vaishnavites. And there was a kind of internecine warfare between them, which was ultimately resolved by Acharya Ramanuja. This is my life. At least this has been my life for the last 22 years. My family was from here. My father couldn't get a job only because he was a Brahmin. And therefore, in sheer anger, he jumped onto a train and got off wherever that train stopped, which happened to be Lahore. And I was born in what is now Pakistan. And he was twice, other Brahmins are twice born. He was twice exiled. First from here to Lahore, and then at partition, he was exiled from Lahore to India. And I was brought up in northern India and then joined the Foreign Service and traveled a great deal around the world. So after 26 years in the Foreign Service, I decided to resign and start an alternative career in politics and the media. Of course, Rajiv was horrified and he tried his best to stop me from.
So he didn't want you to enter politics?
No, he told me very clearly that, look, he says, this system will never accept you. So where I had assumed that the whole of my political life was going to be under his patronage, in fact, I've had to work out my political life, and my association with him has probably been my strongest political asset over these last 2 decades. But it's a tough fight.
So I've had a fabulous dose of history on the Chola culture, sculpture and architecture. And now, Mr. Aiyar, we'll be heading towards the villages in Mayiladuthurai. Talking about your political career, you basically have been always seen as a Rajiv Gandhi man. Were you happy with the way your political career unfolded?
It's a miracle that it unfolded at all. Because apart from Rajiv Gandhi, what other claim did I have to a political life? And where Rajiv had said to me that the system will never accept you, I think it's true to say that the system has not fully accepted me. But it would be untrue to say that the system has rejected me. I think the kind of personality you require to be a successful politician, which is to always have a pleasant mien, to never really say no, and never to overcommit yourself when you say yes. I think I lack those qualities.
But at any point of time, did you ever feel that no, I should quit?
I thoroughly enjoyed my career in the Foreign Service. But honestly, cross my heart, hope to die, I have never had 1 second of regret that I made the transition from diplomacy to politics.
Every ministry you joined, you became a minister and you tried to do something, and then whatever you wanted to do was scuttled without naming the people, but it was scuttled in some way or the other.
But I
Why
think
was
that's
it
the
so?
experience of every minister.
Okay.
You see, a ministry is only a cog in a wheel. And somehow you have to establish links with everybody. The one exception is perhaps the finance
So do you
ministry.
admit that you weren't able to do that? Do you weren't able to establish the
Why should I
required
admit
links?
it as just a statement of fact? Yeah, I don't think I was a successful minister.
Do you want to become a minister again?
Well, if somebody will make me, but I doubt that I ever will.
You showed that you had the political skill, you had the knack of dealing with the people, but you were misread by the political class?
I don't think so. I think they just concluded that what political skills I had, they could also find elsewhere. I don't fault them. And in the words of Edith Piaf, je ne regrette rien. I regret nothing. And I've made friends across the party lines.
But you don't have any close friends in Congress?
I would say there are no jigri dost.
Okay.
And there are no langotias.
So what was the reason why you opposed Commonwealth Games?
I was warned by my predecessor that I was going to get into very bad trouble because huge amounts of money were being spent without proper authority and proper accounting. So in fact, I remarked jokingly, I said, Suresh, I have no desire to share a cell with you in Tihar jail. And he was, of course, very angry.
Time and again, this debate comes up about the dual pass center. Do you think really this formula of the dual pass center would be favorable for a country like India, for a democracy like India?
Congress has run on the basis of a single power center and a dual power center. We know who is primus inter pares. The government has to run on the basis of a certain harmony between the party on the one hand and the government on the other.
Right now we are at the Rajiv Gandhi Special Area Game Center in Mayiladuthurai, and this place has a special significance in the life of Shankar Aiyar.
It was here that we were going to hold the public meeting for Sri Rajiv Gandhi on the 22nd of May 1991. And he was due to land. We had plenty of space here for his helicopter to land. Yeah, and the public meeting to be held. So I went off to campaign in the same Kuttalam area where we'll be going later today. And we finished. In those days, session hadn't come. There were not these restrictions. So it was about midnight that we finished. And I came back, and through one of the crowded streets that we just passed was where my constituency office was. And there was somebody, as a young man, waiting for me. And he said that Rajiv had been assassinated. I couldn't believe it, just didn't seem true. So this is the place that is most sacred to the memory of my friend Rajiv Gandhi.
This ground at the Game Center has fond memories because this was the place where Rajiv Gandhi was supposed to hold a rally the next day, but the night before, unfortunately, he was assassinated. It's 8:30 in the evening and we've reached a village called Nalathikudi, which is part of the Mayiladuthurai town. And here Mr. Shankar Aiyar is going to address the Gram Panchayat members.
Mahatma Gandhi அவர்கள் அடிக்கடி சொல்வார், cleanliness is next to godliness.
Former Panchayati Raj Minister always tries to give priority to the agendas of Panchayat. Hence, there's a tractor given away under the MP Lad scheme for the benefit of the farmers. We've reached a place which is very close to Shankar Aiyar's heart.
So we went around with you in the constituency, but we've seen the kind of political life you lead in the constituency and of course your political career. But coming to your personal front, how did you actually get to meet your wife? Because I believe she was a Sikh. You must have had many objections.
She is a Sikh.
She is still a Sikh. So there must have been very many objections from both the sides, from the families of both the sides.
Well, I first met Sunit when she was 16, all of sweet 16. And I was just about 18, and we were representing our respective colleges, Lady Irwin and St. Stephen's, at an elocution contest.
But your marriage wouldn't have been easy.
Oh, it wasn't at all, because my mother in particular made as much of a nuisance of herself as she could. And I begged her not to turn up eventually. I said, just don't come, there's no need for you to be there. And I had gone, my father had built a little temple next to the Mohan Singh market, and On the other side is the Hanuman Temple on what used to be called Irvin Road and is now called Baba Gharak Singh Marg. So I tripped along there along with Sunit to ask the priests there who live on my father's donations to marry us. And the man said to me, beaming, he said, and she's a Brahmin, of course. And I said, no, she isn't, and she's not even a Hindu. At which point he said, oh, in that case, we can't marry you. Okay. But he offered to bring me a whiskey priest. And I was infuriated. And I said, this is absolute rubbish. And I don't want a Hindu marriage if these are the kind of conditionalities being imposed. So we got ourselves a civil wedding.
But at any point of time, you never felt that you were not giving enough time to your family, or?
I would be up at 7 in the morning to take them to school. And I felt quite proud of my ability to be a good father. I must say, to the credit of Sunit, that although she was fully a professional person and didn't get married till she was 29 years old, it took us 14 years from our first meeting to actually tying the knot, as it were, that she gave it up immediately, just looked after the kids.
But Mr. Aiyar, there's a tradition in Tamil Nadu, you were telling me a short while back, that where the couples get remarried at the age of 60. Did you also go through that marriage?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I made an honest woman of her only at the age of 60. Because, you know, that wedding ceremony that we had with Vinita Rai officiating was a ludicrous one. I had to read a document. This was under the Special Marriages Act of 1954. I had to read a document which said that to the best of my knowledge and belief, I am not married to anyone else just now. I almost collapsed giggling at. But yes, we did follow it, and it so happens that the most famous temple.
And all your children were present at the wedding.
Children were there, and they're thoroughly enjoying getting their parents married once again.
But Mr. Aiyar, looking at the fact that, you know, the kind of time you're spending in the constituency, you more or less have a busy career in politics. So do you get enough time to do things like reading, writing, listening to music? Of course, you're a regular writer as well.
Well, reading and writing is, I think, part of my professional life. If I have an active political life, it's much more a political life of the mind than it is a political life of campaigning or winning elections for people or getting tickets for people. It's not real politics. It is as an intellectual activist, if you like, that I'm in politics. So I do an enormous amount of reading. I also do a lot of book reviewing. I have a peculiar eccentricity that I can never read only one book at a time. Okay. So I usually carry 3 or 4 books with me. And they tend to vary very much in content. One of my favorite authors is P.G. Wodehouse.
But what about your inclination towards music, things like films?
I'm very fond of music, and fortunately my wife has discovered this thing called an iPad. I must say that I'm half brain dead. I cannot fit a plug into a socket. I don't know what to do with computers and you know, these mobiles and this sort of a thing. I think it's a house of music, yes. And she's now getting increasingly interested in dance. So I'm subjected to culture lectures.
Mr. Aiyar, like whenever you speak, people love to listen to you. Whatever you talk, it might be a political satire, it might be a witty comment, but people have always loved to listen to you. But what next for this man called Shankar Aiyar?
The end. I'm 72 years old. There's sort of marginal organ failure taking place at every point. I just don't have any more. As you've seen, the energy that I used to have, I just flake out in the afternoon.
In terms of milestones, like any ambition, any target you've set for yourself?
I don't know any politician who doesn't want to be Prime Minister. But out of the 10,000 or 20,000 of us who strive to be, only one, not in any given lot of 20,000, but in about 20 lots of 20,000, is going to attain that aim. I think we are, as politicians, driven by ambition. There is always a dream that one will come back and do the kind of things that one would like to do, that I would like to be remembered for. And that those two ridiculous lines made such an impression on me when I was an adolescent, that, what is it? Lives of great men all remind us we must make our lives sublime. and departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time.
So, Mr. Aiyar, wish all your dreams come true. It was a pleasure having you on this program.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.